Whether it's a global pandemic or tariffs, external factors can sometimes change the maths that goes into making games profitably. In 2021, I founded a company, Postmark Games, dedicated to making and selling print and play games. And 3.5 years later, we're still around and making games. In this video, I want to look back at my experiences with Postmark Games and try to answer the question, can you really make money selling print and play games? And make sure you stick around to the end, where I share 5 things which I think can lead to success making your own print and play games. Hi, I'm Matthew Dunstan. I'm a full-time board game designer based in Australia, and to date I've had over 60 games published all around the world in a variety of languages. On this channel I like to talk about all things game design, including what it's like to work as a full-time designer in the industry, my experiences, and tips and tricks to help you become a better designer. So I need to take you all back to 2021. We're in the midst of the pandemic and lockdowns, and we're starting to see huge disruptions to the global supply chains, which is impacting every industry, including board games. In particular, shipping for board games has gone through the roof and changed the maths for a lot of companies who are making and distributing physical products. Around that time I was chatting with Rory Muldoon, and as a sign of the time, we hadn't actually ever met in real life, we'd only talked over the internet. Rory is a game designer, an incredibly talented graphic designer and illustrator, and we were chatting as designers do when they get together, about things that annoy us or that we'd love to do but can't in the industry, and we were talking about our shared love of smaller games with a smaller footprint and not a lot of components. We both really like designing these types of experiences. They give you such great constraints as a designer, and often they produce a game that is so much more than the sum of the components that are in them. Rory had this game that he was working on called Voyages, a roll and write game where you sailed a ship around an archipelago of islands using 3 dice, and it had this amazing mechanism where you would choose 1 die to be the direction that your ship sails in, and another die to be how far it moved in that direction. I really loved the game. He'd made it for a design jam earlier that year. We were talking about whether it would be easy to sell this game to a publisher and whether we think it would ever actually get published. And during these conversations, we realized that we might be able to do this game ourselves. It's just a sheet of paper, and you can provide your own writing implement and dice, which most people have. If we could just send the file directly to the player, then job done. And so we delved into this idea of print and play games. Games that are sent to a player via a digital file, which they print out at home themselves on their own printer or at a commercial printer if they go to a store. And then they might provide some common components like dice or pens with which to play the game. And if they want to keep playing it, they either print off more sheets, or they can get that sheet laminated and use dry erase markers. And from these discussions, Postmark Games was born, a new publisher founded by Rory and myself, which was dedicated to making and selling print and play games. At the time, we really didn't know what we were doing. We hadn't even really set up the company. We just had a logo and a name, which was enough to run a first Kickstarter campaign for Voyages. We did all the work in-house. Rory did all the graphic design and illustration for the sheet, and for the different graphics that would go on the Kickstarter page. I helped a lot with the design and development of the game, and we both wrote copy for various emails and the Kickstarter page itself. We were rushing to try and get the game done so that we could have a Kickstarter that would run before the end of the year in 2021, with the hope that we could deliver the files to backers before Christmas. When we went to launch the Kickstarter, we had to decide a backing goal, and we just chose £100 because really we didn't expect many people to be interested in our idea. It was something a bit new, and neither of us had any experience publishing anything. We also didn't do a whole lot of work advertising or promoting the game beforehand, and that goes against a lot of the advice of people who run Kickstarters, where you have to build an audience for your game months, even years before you ever launch it on Kickstarter. So we thought, let's set a goal of £100, and if we get to say £500, that would be amazing. We set the price of a single game at £4, which is about the cost of a coffee, and we thought this would be enticing to backers who are going to be taking a bit of a risk on a new proposition that we were offering. And so we launched the project in late November 2021. The project was only going to go for about 2 weeks, and we were really learning on the job, doing things every day, just trying to hit the deadlines of making new updates and making enough graphics for the game page. And at first, progress was a little bit slow, but then something strange happened. We started to get lots and lots of backers. And as I said, we weren't doing any work really promoting the game at all. Both of us had talked about it on our own private social media channels, although we didn't have millions of followers. But even these small posts on social media started to get shared amongst people, and more people would back the game. We also got a lot of help from Kickstarter itself, who drove a lot of people to our page who had never heard of us before because we were starting to become quite successful. We quickly blew past our £100 goal and even our £500 sort of stretch goal that we would have been really happy with. We climbed higher and higher until at the end of the campaign, we had almost 13,000 backers who had pledged over £52,000. It was beyond our wildest expectations of the game. And in this moment, we knew we had something. From this point, we had to scramble to do a lot of the back-end jobs that we really should have done before we started the campaign. We did the formalities of registering our company, building out a website, and building an infrastructure to deliver the files to the backers. We crunched a bit to do all this, but we managed to get the game out before Christmas in 2021, and backers really enjoyed the game, sharing it a lot online. We also set up a Discord around this time, which was really active with hundreds of users sharing news about them playing the game, and even starting to design their own maps of the game, which would be the start of some great community designs that we hosted on the Discord. One thing that we had always thought to do for our games is to continue to support them after their initial sale. Because they're digital files, we can easily update them and give new content to backers, basically for free. And so with Voyages, we would release new maps every few months, and this kept the game alive for some time. We offered the game for sale on our website, where you could buy direct at the same price that you would get it from the Kickstarter, £4, and we started to see some sales coming in on the website as well, which we launched in early 2022. Fast forward to today, and about 3 years later, Postmark has run 5 more successful Kickstarter campaigns for 5 new games, and we've even released 1 game direct to our website. The money that we've made on these Kickstarter campaigns, plus the money that we've made on our website, means that we've made almost £250,000 over that 3-year period. Not only have our games sold well, they've been well received by the community, with 2 of our games, Aquamarine and Waypoints, winning the Golden Geek for the best print and play game of the year in 2022 and 2023, and our latest game, 52 Realms Adventures, being nominated for the best print and play game of the year for 2024. At the time of the filming, we don't know whether it's won or not. To this day, we still have a really active Discord community, and a really fantastic community has grown up around Postmark Games, who love the games we make, but also generally print and play games and what that offers to the gaming hobby. It's also been a hub for game design. Because our games are so accessible and designing print and play games is something that anybody really can do, we've had lots of people try their hand at design and making new maps and content for our existing games. And we encourage those folks to share their creations on our Discord, where other people can play them and give them feedback. So I think you can agree that it is possible to make money selling print and play games. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. There are a lot of different factors that have gone into the success of Postmark Games, some of which I think can be replicated by new people wanting to come into the space and make their own games, and other things which are quite specific to our own situation. And I thought I'd go over these as a useful starting point for other folks trying to get started in the world of print and play publishing. There are 5 main things which I think helped us to succeed, 2 of which you can use in your own forays into print and play publishing, and 3 which are pretty specific to us and might be hard to replicate if you try and do it yourself. We'll start with the 3 reasons which are quite specific to our own story with Postmark Games and our experiences as Matthew and Rory, game designers and illustrators. The first reason Postmark Games succeeded was luck. The story of Postmark Games is an absolute perfect example of being in the right place at the right time with the right idea. We launched the game at the end of 2021, which was really at the height of the global shipping crisis. A lot of folks in the board game world were getting updates from Kickstarters they had backed, suddenly telling them that they were going to be delayed for many months or even years, or even worse, asking them for more money in order to receive their games. And at the same time, other publishers were having to delay new projects. They weren't in-person game conventions where players could see new games and buy them. And in the midst of all that, we were able to offer this new experience, new games that you could get at home without leaving the house, which was absolutely perfect for that point in time. And having that right idea at the right time allowed it really to spread by itself. We didn't have any experience in marketing. In fact, we still don't really have much experience in marketing. And we didn't spend a lot of time or money doing ads. In fact, we didn't do any ads at all for the Voyages Kickstarter. But because the idea was good enough and it really was at the right time, it just spread completely organically and led to that huge Kickstarter for Voyages, which gave us such an amazing foundation for the start of the company. It legitimized us as a real company offering a product which thousands of people had bought into, and it gave us a huge already made community who really loved our games and would keep coming back for new games that we would make. This is something that was ultimately out of our control, and I don't think you can rely on something like that if you're going to launch a print and play game now. We certainly haven't seen the same level of success on our subsequent Kickstarters. We've seen moderate success, but we've never seen the same kind of numbers that we saw on the Voyages campaign, which really came at such a specific moment in time. The second reason why Postmark Games is so successful is Rory. I haven't spoke a lot about Rory here, and hopefully we'll have some video where we both talk about Postmark Games soon. But if you don't know, Rory Muldoon is an incredible game designer and graphic designer and illustrator. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated graphic designers, illustrators in the board game industry. He hasn't done that many different games, but what he has done is such high quality. I mean, look at what he's made for Postmark Games. I don't think I knew it at the time when I started the company with Rory that I'd really lucked out, that I'd be able to go into a venture like this with such a talented individual. And having someone like Rory within the company allows us to produce such high quality work. To get the same standard of work from an external contractor would cost us so much money up front. It would be completely infeasible for the type of cash flow that you have in a print and play company. And so unless you've come up with some technology to clone Rory, then that's an advantage that we have that might be hard to replicate in other companies. The third reason why I think we've succeeded, that has to do a lot with us, is somewhat related to the previous point, and that is our previous experience and somewhat notoriety in the board game community. At this point, I'd already been a game designer for many years, and while I might not be the most famous game designer, there are some people in the industry, players, other designers, publishers, who do know me and are interested in what I'm doing. So even when I did the bare minimum of sharing the Voyager's Kickstarter on social media at the time, we did get picked up by quite a few people, folks like Rodney Smith at Roger Played, and Board Game Geek featured us as well. And these things, I think, really helped to spread the word. It would have been hard to have this exposure, I think, if we were complete unknowns in the industry. And those specific connections and networks really had a big part to play in the success of Voyagers and the subsequent success of Postmark Games. So those are 3 reasons for our success that are specific to our own circumstances and personalities and histories in the board game industry. What about the 2 reasons which I think other folks can possibly replicate in their own projects? The first reason is that we offered a professional product and we made sure that our presentation of that product was similarly professional. We knew that we were going to be launching this game on Kickstarter, and while print and play games have existed for a long time, there hadn't been any high-profile games that had done well on crowdfunding using that model. So we knew that we had a knowledge barrier that we had to cross to convince backers to back our project. It was something new and a bit unfamiliar to them. And one way that we knew to get over that barrier was to make sure that every other aspect of our project, of our game, of the way we presented them, that we would make sure that it would be as professionally presented as any other board game Kickstarter on the platform. That meant spending a lot of time on the graphic design and illustration of the actual game sheet, as well as the logo for the game, our company, and having a lot of different graphics on the Kickstarter page showing the gameplay, and also even educating folks about how print and play actually works. This gave backers the confidence to back our project, even if they hadn't heard of Postmark Games before, and even if they didn't really exactly know what print and play was. The fact that we'd presented something so professionally and that they could see was well designed, both in terms of its presentation and its game design, meant that we got a lot of people backing our project. And while I think print play can be a great approach for a new designer who wants to get their games out in the world, to truly be successful and potentially make a lot of money selling print and play games, you kind of have to play by the rules that govern all publishers of board games. We're all competing on how games look, maybe more than even they play. And the last reason why Postmark Games is successful, and I think one of the most important things, is that we leverage the unique aspects of print and play games. While the previous point was all about presenting games just like they were a normal physical product so you could compete on a crowdfunding website like Kickstarter, this point is about all the things that are different about print and play games as compared to traditionally manufactured games, and making the most of the advantages of print and play games. These include having super easy and super quick delivery after a Kickstarter. It was a huge boost to be able to deliver our product 1 or 2 weeks after the end of the Kickstarter, especially for Voyagers. This was basically unheard of, especially at a time when most backers were hearing about huge delays to receiving their games. It led to high satisfaction with backers who were really happy to get their games early, but it also let us ride the wave of the hype that was around the Kickstarter, and that carry into players getting the games and being excited to play them because it wasn't so far after the end of the Kickstarter. It's often a problem with other big Kickstarter campaigns. You get a lot of excitement about a game when it's crowdfunding, but by the time it delivers 1 or 2 years later, the hype has died down and people don't even necessarily play the games when they receive them. We didn't have that problem with Voyagers and our subsequent games, and that's a huge advantage of print and play games. And that meant we could roll the success into selling the game on our website, where we started seeing sales very quickly, even without a lot of marketing, because we still had the hype from that original crowdfunding campaign. Another huge advantage of print and play games is that your games are effectively in stock forever and can be bought from anywhere in the world. This means your games can have a much longer lifespan than other physical games, which are constrained by having to make a decision to reprint a game once it goes out of stock. And if it hasn't been successful enough, or it's deemed too high a risk, then the game will go out of stock and nobody can get it anymore thus killing the life of the game. With our games, we can offer them for sale on our website forever. And one of the other advantages of print and play, which I talked about before, is something akin to what you see in digital games, and that's the ability to offer new content to players at not much extra cost to us, the company, to provide it to them. When we launch our games on Kickstarter, typically they'll deliver with 2 of their maps already made, and then we'll release the other maps over time, and people who have backed or purchased the game can go back into the Dropbox folder where their games are and download the new maps at no extra cost. Not only does this help us extend the life of our game by offering effectively free expansions to keep the game fresh and interesting, it also gives us a great opportunity to talk about and advertise previous releases. Every time we release a new piece of content for an older game, we can talk about it and we see a spike in sales for that particular game, even if it was released more than a year ago. This model of effectively doing DLC for games is really unique to print and play games. It would be far too expensive to do the same for physical games. And leveraging these kind of opportunities is a great thing that you can think about if you're going to make print and play games. So hopefully in this video I've been able to show you that yes, it is possible to make money making and selling print and play games, and that there are a lot of unique factors in this format that you can use to your own advantage. But at the same time, I hope I've also given you a realistic picture of some of the reasons why we've been successful as Postmark Games, some of which you can replicate in your own endeavors, and some things that really are out of all of our control and would be hard to replicate in another project or venture. A huge thanks to our Postmark community who've really made the company what it is. The fact that we're even still around and making new games and excited to make new games is such a wonderful thing, and it's our community that has helped us do that and kept us going all these years. And so to anyone who's bought our games, shared them, talked about them on Discord or Board Game Geek, thank you. I've left a link to Postmark Games' website down below, and if you're interested in any of our games, take a look on them on the website and you can buy them and give them a go. And if you have any specific questions about designing print and play games or how we run Postmark Games, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to make more videos about this topic, and I think it's something really interesting that's not talked about in a lot of places. But until next time, thanks very much for watching and all the best in your game designs. Bye.